Hey everyone, and welcome to Week 10 Snoozers or Losers. I'm joined here by Tony from Fantasy Quick Hits and Kyle from Boom Bust Fantasy Football. Of course, I'm Corey, the other half of Boom Bust Fantasy Football, probably the boom side of things. All right, guys, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Good. How you doing, guys?
Not too shabby.
More
All
like
right,
you're more like the Boom Howard side of things. You keep rambling on and on all day.
You're welcome. All right, guys, y'all want to jump right into your the Snoozers and Losers talk?
Yeah, man.
Let's do it.
All righty. Let's bring up the big board.
Oh, man.
Okay. All righty. Let's start with some quarterback talk. And Tony, I'm going to let you go first. Here's our list of quarterbacks for the night. Hit me with one which you want to go with first.
Yeah, let me start right off with Derek Carr. I'm going to slide Derek Carr over into our snoozer column for this week. I really like him this week against this Kansas City defense. Derek Carr has been airing it out quite a bit recently, and Kansas City has been very soft against the pass. They've only had, I think, 2 sub 20-point games this season. So I look for Derek Carr to get back on track, maybe get right game against Kansas City at home. Darren Waller seems to be healthy. Hunter Renfrow it looks to be kind of picking up some of those targets that were going to Ruggs. They're getting Kenyon Drake involved. So I like him in this spot. I like him in this matchup. Kansas City is in the bottom 3 against the QB this year. So fire him up, Derek Carr.
Nice. Wish he would have had a better week last week on my spot start. Anyways, Kyle, what do you got going?
I'm going to start with my snoozer too, actually, Carson Wentz. He is playing very, very well for the Colts. He went nutty last week for the Jets. So if you picked him up last week for a spot starter for Kyler Murray, you're very happy with Murray not playing this week to have him again versus Jacksonville. So he's my snoozer. I mean, the maturity of Pittman as a borderline wide receiver 1 now in that offense, and Jonathan Taylor playing out of his mind. That offense is firing on all cylinders.
Absolutely. All right, Tony, who you got as your loser?
First of all, I'm going to call out Kyle for pulling my snoozer from last week, Carson Wentz. Then I think I had him last week as my snoozer.
Yeah,
check the tapes.
I actually, because of that, I picked him up to replace Murray in 2 leagues, and it paid off. So
nice.
I like Carson. We learn from each other on these.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Give me a little shout out though. Say I'm going to follow in Tony's footsteps or something like that.
I already give you all the shout outs from everything I learned from Wall Street on Wednesdays. So this one I'm holding close to the chest.
All right, that's fine. Fair
Tony, you might want to
Tony,
you might want to zoom your camera out. Your head's getting a little big there. It's hard to fit into the frame.
Let me hit you with my loser of the week, and that's Mr. Jalen Hurts. It's funny because Jalen Hurts started the season as a fantasy darling at the quarterback position, and since that first week blow up of 37 points, it's been somewhat disappointing. Not what we expected this year. Last 2 weeks combined, he had 27 pass attempts. Now, he does give you a high floor with those rushing yards, but with the limited pass attempts, he also gives you a very low ceiling. Up against this Denver defense, ranked number 2 against a quarterback in fantasy. Don't like him in this spot. I think they're starting to lean more on that rushing game and taking the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands. So he's going to be my loser of the week. And so when I say loser, let me kind of help to maybe define that a little bit in terms of ranking. I would probably put Jalen Hurts somewhere down, maybe near quarterback 20. So there are a bunch of quarterbacks I'd be starting this week over Jalen Hurts. And this is a guy typically who you'll find ranked in the top 10 at the quarterback, top 12 at the quarterback position. So Jalen Hurts is my loser for the week.
All right. Kyle, that leaves you with your loser of the week.
Yep, Mr. Ryan Tannehill. Tony, did you have him last week as a loser? You might have.
I probably thought about him, and that's kind of why.
I mean, last week they played the Rams. He has a decent enough game. This week they play New Orleans, which is not a good matchup. They're still relying on their defense and running the ball a lot. Now they have a trio of running backs that they're using to replace one Derrick Henry. Still doesn't equate one Derrick Henry, but that's the style of game that the coaches have, decided to keep playing. And I don't see Ryan Tannehill performing like any different than he did when Derrick Henry was in there, honestly. So I think the pass numbers are still going to be what they've always been. Still going to rely on the run as much as possible, even though it's a terrible matchup for that too against New Orleans. I just don't think they're going to move the ball well against New Orleans at all. So yeah, Tannehill's my loser for the week.
Awesome. All right, guys. Now for the wild card. Here we go.
These are
the wild card. Anyone got a guess?
No clue.
No.
It's Matt Ryan.
Oh,
Matt Ryan going against Dallas. Kyle, we'll let you go first, Dallas fan.
dude, Dallas has a habit of making people look pretty good. The problem is it's not quarterbacks. It's usually running backs and receivers. You think with good receiver numbers become good quarterback numbers, but that's not always true. Matt Ryan's just not that good a quarterback anymore. And we do have a good chance of letting some of their, like Patterson and Pitts and stuff, maybe having a good game, but I don't think Matt Ryan has a great game. I'm gonna keep him in my loser column. I don't feel comfortable starting him, even against Dallas.
All right. Tony, what do you think about Matt Ryan this week?
Yeah, I disagree with Kyle on this.
You would.
Matt Ryan against this Dallas defense, I think, is easily top 10, top 12 on the week. The Dallas defense has not been very good against the quarterback, and this is a Matt Ryan who, even without Calvin Ridley, is coming off of a strong performance against that strong Saints defense, almost 350 passing yards. He had 2 touchdowns. He did have a down week 8 against the Panthers. Other than that, though, he's had 3 straight games of 300-plus yards passing. I see this as a very nice matchup for Matt Ryan, and I'm starting him in all formats.
All right. So a split decision, which brings me into play. All right. Cowboys bias. Where does it go? Okay. I'm actually going to throw Matt Ryan into the snoozer column this week because Matt Ryan's starting to get it together a little bit. And I think that run game, Cordero Patterson's it's going to do pretty well, and it's going to open up some passing opportunities. I think last week kind of showed that Dallas is very vulnerable in that spot. I think he tries to probably stay away from Diggs as much as possible, but I think he's still going to have a good week. So I'm going to put him in the snoozer column just because it's a good matchup for him. So, alrighty, guys, let's move on to some running backs. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Cool. Kyle, we're going to let you go first on this one. Hit us with your first running back.
I'm going to switch it up this time and go loser first. And I'm going to go Michael Carter against Buffalo. He had that blow-up week a couple weeks ago. Everybody was buying him all over the place. He flopped last week against the Colts. And this week's matchup is even worse. So staying away from Michael Carter this week, unless you absolutely have to, obviously.
Right. Tony, who you got?
I have advice for Kyle. Watch snoozers and losers from the week prior and just pull my players to the current week, because Carter was my loser for last week.
Dude, I've watched and read so much stuff in the last week. I cannot remember that, honestly.
I'm just busting your chops. I'm going to give you my snoozer of the week, and that's Dearness Johnson. It looks like Nick Chubb is going to be out this week. Nick Chubb has a surprisingly nice matchup against the New England defense, who's kind of a neutral plus matchup for running backs in Week 7 against Denver. We saw Dearness Johnson go off. He had 20, 24 total touches, between runs and receptions out of the backfield. I do look for him to really not necessarily reproduce what he did in Week 7, but I do look for him to have a very strong game. And what's interesting is Dearness Johnson is available right now in 55% of ESPN leagues. So he's a guy that you can pick up right off of waivers and plug him right into your lineup this week against this New England defense.
Good call.
Love him in this spot.
Everybody
absolutely.
dropped him after Chubb came back. And after this last week, he didn't get any work. It's like, man, you should have held him just a little bit longer.
Yep, I did not drop him in any of the leagues I had him in. Haha. Alrighty, Kyle.
All right, hit me with my snoozer, Mr. Melvin Gordon. I mean, Dallas made him look like a all-star last week, and Philly's an even better matchup. And clearly, they still view him as the lead dog in that backfield over Javonte. So, give me all the Melvin Gordon this week.
Fair enough. All right, Tony, that leaves you.
Yeah, I have my loser of the week as Josh Jacobs. I don't really like him in this spot against the Chiefs. He didn't put up the type of numbers we expected him last week against that Giant defense. 13 carries, 76 yards, 4 catches for 19 yards. It was a 12-point day, no touchdowns. Looks like Kenyon Drake is going to be really more involved with this passing offense without Henry Ruggs. And against this Kansas City offense or this Kansas City team, I should say, the game script might lead itself towards more of a shootout, and I don't see them really giving many opportunities for Josh Jacobs. So I've got him as a loser. And when I say loser, I don't mean that he isn't startable. I just mean he's going to be maybe an RB3 flex type running back this week against Kansas City.
Yep, fair enough. Agree with that. All right, let's go into a little wild card here.
Hit us with that special sauce.
Yeah. All righty, guys. It is going to be James Conner. James Conner plays Carolina. That is a waiver wire hot pickup. But how does he do against Carolina this week? Flash in the pan. Tony, you get to go first.
I really like Conner this week, even against this Carolina defense. This guy is, without Chase Edmonds in the lineup, he's an RB1. And he's going to get plenty of touches in this game. He has a monopoly on the goal line carries. He's getting receptions out of the backfield. He could touch the ball 30 times against this Carolina defense. So I know Carolina has been very, very tough against the running back, but I still like him. I would probably put him maybe top 10, top 12 this week, but I do see him as an RB1. And if you've got Conner on your roster, I mean, you just hit the fantasy lottery this past week with this injury to Edmonds, because it looks like he's going to miss even more time than what they're saying. Short-term IR, but it could be multi-weeks, 4, 5, 6 week absence for Mr. Edmonds. So love James. If you can grab James Conner in a trade, this is a time to get James Conner.
Good luck.
Or if you watch waiver hits, maybe grab him off of waivers if he's available.
That's absolutely.
If you're in that 20% of leagues where he's available, pick him up.
If there's a game where he doesn't produce, and he has a bye week 12, but Seattle is next week. Seattle is very soft against the run. So if he does have a little bit of a down week this week, that would be a great time to try and get him, because coming off that bye against Chicago, the Rams, and Detroit, those are really pretty nice matchups. The Rams have not been really good against the run. So he's a guy you might be able to trade for after this game against Carolina, but I still like him as a snoozer.
Kyle, what do you think?
For me, he's a loser, but here's why. It's not because he's not startable. It's not because I don't think he'll have an okay game. I don't expect him to be an RB1 this week against Carolina because of that matchup. I think he's more of a mid to high 2. So he's still going to be good, but based on expectations in that matchup, he's going to be a loser for me this week.
Okay.
But he will have good games, and I agree with Tony. After this week, go buy him up, because after this week, he's going to blow up again like he did last week.
So I counter your counter, and let me just make one point.
That's against the rules. Referee.
We're breaking the rules. It's very difficult in fantasy, especially with the injuries and with the bye weeks, to find a running back who gives you the potential for 25 to 30 touches in the game.
No, I totally agree with that.
That's Derrick Henry territory. So I know the matchup's tough, but the volume is going to be there for Connor.
I have one question before I come and make this split. Kyler Murray playing this week?
Not looking like it. I think he's looking pretty slim. I agree with you. He'll get the volume. I just not sure he'll do much with it this week.
Kyler Murray not playing this week puts him in the snoozer column for me, because I think they're going to lean on him more, and I think he might actually catch more passes too.
I think that hurts him more.
I think he catches more passing and
They
stuff.
heard it last week.
I think that helps him. That's my decision.
They didn't play Carolina last week, though.
That's very true. That's very true. All righty, guys, let's move on to some wide receivers here. Tony, I'm going to let you go first again. Who you got?
I'm going to go with my wide receiver snoozer, and it's going to go right along. I did the same thing last week with Wentz and Pittman. I'm going to go Derek Carr, and I really like Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow, even before they lost Ruggs, Hunter Renfrow was a volume receiver in this offense. Derek Carr really trusts him. That he has a very defined role in this passing offense against this Kansas City defense. I really look for Renfrow to have a really, really nice game this week. And I see him as a wide receiver too, maybe even a high-end wide receiver too in this matchup. I know that they picked up Djax, but Djax, I don't think he's going to do much these first couple of weeks on this Raiders roster. So I think it's going to be the Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller show.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's if Deshaun Jackson actually does anything ever for them.
And again, you also had Renfrow as a buy on Wall Street last week, if I remember correctly. So
I'm pretty sure
that paid off because he had a great game last week.
Yeah, some might say I know what I'm doing.
Some would.
Sometimes.
Some might, some may not. Just again, going back to Carr, last week he had over 40 pass attempts. So Hunter Renfrow is going to get that volume this week, and I just really like that matchup. I think this is a great stack too in DFS, depending on whether or not you play DraftKings.
That's a good point.
Yep.
That's a very good
point. A lot of value in those two guys right there this week.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree.
Kyle, hit me with your wide receiver.
I'm going to hit you with my loser, Deebo Samuel. Plays the Rams this week. Not a fantastic matchup, but with Aiyuk coming on, Kittle's back, fewer targets, I don't think he's going to meet the expectations that people have for him after the start of his season. So he's a loser for me this week.
Fair enough. Tony, who's your loser?
Yeah, I've got DeAndre Hopkins. It's tough because if you have DeAndre Hopkins and he is active for this game, you've got to start him. But without Murray, it looks like Murray's going to miss. With this injury that he's been nagging him the past couple of weeks, I don't expect big things from him out of this matchup against Carolina. I do think it's going to be more the James Conner show. I think they're going to really lean on him and that defense. So I just think game script, the injury, potential for not having Murray, and it's looking like they're going to protect him another week. I think I like DeAndre as it's going to sound crazy to say this, but like as a wide receiver 3. I think if you play a 3 wide receiver or 2 in a flex, you can put him in your flex spot and feel comfortable. But I wouldn't put him any higher than that this week in this matchup. with the situation there in Arizona.
No
not even
faith
sure
in
I'd
Colt
say-
McCoy.
I'm not even sure I'd say feel comfortable when you say put him in that third spot or the flex. You
No
can,
faith
but
in Colt.
maybe
It's
not.
still
feel
he's still D-Hop. I mean, he's still a top 3 talent in the league. So,
Yeah.
that's not changed. And
if the hammy holds up too.
you can't disregard that. It's just I keep an eye on the injury report this week. I want to see if he's practicing. I want to see if he's practicing in full. You want to know what's going on with Kyler Murray, but this has the potential to be one of the very few weeks where you can put DeAndre into that loser column.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Kyle.
All right. You
Hit
got
me
my
with it.
snoozer, Terry McLaurin. Coming off a bye, and before that, a bad game against Denver. Coming out against Tampa Bay, who's not that good against the pass. I think McLaurin has a get-right game this week. And, they're going to have to throw to keep up with the Bucs on the scoreboard. So if Logan Thomas comes back this week or if not, then Ricky Seals-Jones, I think, will also have a good game, just a little bonus nugget. But I think McLaurin has a pretty good game this week.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Throw.
Yep.
All right, guys. Time for the wild card. Tony, you're going to get to go first on this one. Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, I like Aiyuk. I think he is really beginning to carve himself out a bit of a role here in this offense. We're beginning to see him come on and starting to get a glimpse of what we expected from him going into the season. So Aiyuk is back on fantasy radars, and people don't really expect a whole lot from him, but he has a chance to be real sneaky. So I do like Aiyuk. I would put him in my snoozer column here for week 10. And I know, this Rams defense can be tough. But I do like him this week.
Kyle, what do you think?
I actually agree with that. Whereas I had Deebo as my loser because of the tough matchup against the Rams and not meeting expectations. I think Aiyuk exceeds expectations and has a better game than people are probably thinking he will. And we agree on this one. Snoozer.
Perfect. All righty. Let's move on to some tight ends. Tony, we'll let you go first. Who's your first tight end?
Yeah, I'm going to pick Pat Freiermuth. He has really emerged in this Pittsburgh offense. I think what we didn't know is how this offense would take shape without Juju. And they love to utilize a tight end, and they love to utilize this particular type of tight end. He fits kind of right into their DNA. And he's been getting a ton of targets. You saw Monday night, he had those 2 touchdowns catches. They trust him in the red zone. He's getting these red zone targets. He's got an active, real role in this passing offense. So he's a guy that I think at this point has moved into that low-end tight end 1 rank, and you can trust him as a top 10 tight end. What's interesting is many who have Freiermuth are also kind of the same teams that had Dawson Knox and were looking for someone they can pick up off waivers with that injury. And so now you're kind of in a little bit of a conundrum. I mean, who are you playing? Are you playing Dawson Knox on an offense that's been struggling as of late? Or are you going with a Pat Freiermuth who is really coming on? If it's me, I'm leaning Freiermuth.
Yeah, I agree. What have you done for me lately?
Yeah.
Kyle, hit me with your tight end.
My tight end loser is going to be Zach Ertz. With, he's not really been doing what people thought, but with no Kyler Murray and against this Carolina defense, I'm not touching Zach Ertz this week.
All righty. Kyle's just down on every Cardinal.
Yeah.
Can't blame. All righty. Tony, who's your loser?
Yeah, well, I'm just kind of like I did the stack with Derek Carr and Hunter Renfrow on the snoozer side. I'm going to do the same thing on the loser side. We've got Jalen Hurts in there, and so I'm going to go with Mr. Dallas Goedert. I do not like him at all in this matchup. Denver has been brutal against the tight end. And again, Jalen Hurts just not throwing it enough to make Dallas Goedert would say not to make him startable, but it really lowers that ceiling quite a bit. And I just don't think, based on this matchup with how much we're seeing Jalen Hurts air the ball out, that we can put Dallas Goedert as an every week starter. He's going to have to be a spot starter, and I want to see how this offense really takes shape over the upcoming weeks, and if they start to lean a little bit more on the arm of Jalen Hurts as opposed just to his legs in that running game.
Absolutely. All right, Kyle, that leaves you.
It leaves my snoozer, Dan Arnold. I know last week we had him in the loser column. We had him as a sell, I think, on Wall Street. We were telling people do not start Dan Arnold last week against Buffalo. However, this week they play against Indianapolis, and I like him in this spot. He's getting a lot of targets. They like throwing to him now, so this is a good spot start for Dan Arnold here if you're needing a tight end fill-in.
All righty, cool. Let's go to the wild card. Kyle, we're going to let you go first on this one. And this is if he's active, what do we think about Rób Gronkowski?
If he's active. Well, they're playing Washington, so Washington can't stop anything in the passing game, so snooze it, baby.
Tony, what do you think?
I don't think he's going to play.
I don't think he is either, but if he plays.
So if he plays, I put him in a loser column because I don't trust he's going to make it through the game. He's injured.
Just like last time.
I don't want that in my lineup. It's just too risky. I mean, why put someone with any type of volatility in your starting lineup? I mean, you can't plug a guy in there with the risk of him not completing a game or having another injury or not being involved in that passing game. He's got to have to maybe work back into this again. I just don't trust him. I need to see it before I put him back into my lineup. I like Gronk when he's healthy, but he's just not healthy. So loser.
You just sucked all the hypothetical fun out of that hypothetical scenario.
I was just about to say, I apologize for the hypothetical wild card here.
No, but it's a great question. The question is, if he plays, are you starting him?
Yep.
And my answer to that is he is injured. And so if he plays, I'm not starting him because I want to make sure he can finish the game. We had this conversation last week with other players who were injured. And if you have a guy going in on Sunday who carries an injury designation, especially a guy like Gronkowski, who we've already just seen it a couple of weeks ago, it's just too big a risk. So even though we're talking about Gronkowski, it's a great hypothetical, and you can apply that also to other players.
Yeah, because of that, I'm also taking Gronk into the loser column. If he plays the whole game, I think he dominates, like Kyle says. But I think the last time he tried to play, we saw he pulled himself early. He was having back spasms. He could try to come back too early. That makes me nervous. I want to see him play a full game before I trust him in my lineup. That's just me going with a safe play. I'm a safe player. I try to be. So yeah, that's just.
I might just be too trustworthy that he won't make the same mistake twice and come back too early, but
it makes sense.
I think also what factors in is the fact that we just saw Kittle come off IR and have a great game on his first week back. That's not the norm. And in this offense, part of the difference with San Francisco is they don't really have the receiving core that they have in Tampa Bay. So they don't need Gronkowski. It looks like Antonio Brown might be back. They have Evans. They have Godwin. So they don't need to lean on this guy. I think even if he does play a full game, I don't know that he's going to have a real active role this week.
All righty, guys. Glad I could throw a wrench in the game there.
That was a good one.
Hey, every great once in a while. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut, right? All righty. Let's blow this up and let people take a look at the board, and that's what that looks like. All righty. There's your snoozers and losers for the week. But now let's go to our super snoozers and super losers for the week. These are overall people that you think overall are your best snoozers and best losers of the week. Let's start off with snoozers. Tony, give us your snoozer of the week, overall snoozer of the week.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that that this guy has risen through the fantasy ranks the way he has this year, but he really has turned into a potential league winner, guy that you picked up off of waivers earlier in the season. If you have him on your roster, nobody drafted this guy, and that's Cordarrelle Patterson. Well, what a season this guy is having, and
For
he seems to be matchup proof. He is involved with every aspect of this offense. We see him getting carries out of the backfield. He went off last week. He caught all 6 of his targets for 126 yards, and I just love him, love him, love him in this matchup against Dallas. We have Matt Ryan in our snoozer column, and look, you've got 2 options there really in that passing game, although Russell Gage seemed to get back on track this week. But really, Kyle Pitts and Cordarrelle Patterson is he's a playmaker, and he's going to get plenty of opportunities this week against Dallas to make plays. So he, to me, whether you're playing him at the receiver position because he's dual flexible still in most leagues, he's a top 5, top 6 type player this week in fantasy.
All righty, Kyle.
Yeah, I
Who's your
like that. My super snoozer actually didn't even like register with me that I picked a guy from the same team until I told Corey who my guy was, and he's like, I got Russell Gage. I think this is probably the best breakout spot you're going to see for a Russell Gage. I think all of these Atlanta pass catchers are going to feast against Dallas. As much as it pains me in my heart to say it, I do think they'll have a pretty good game this week. So we got a lot of Falcons in our snoozer column this week.
sad day as a Cowboys fan?
Yeah.
All right, Tony, hit us with your overall loser of the week.
Yeah, it pains me to do this. Someone that many people had high hopes going into the season and looks to be coming on a little bit. Certainly had a nice game last week. But I'm going to put Jerry Jeudy as my super loser of the week. I think his guy's clearly, for me, outside my top 30. And Philly has been a very, very difficult matchup against opposing wide receivers. They're ranked in the top 5. Bridgewater is still not kind of very impressive and has had a difficult in taking full control of this passing offense. I think he's limited as a quarterback, which really lowers the ceiling of a Jerry Jeudy. I do think Jerry Jeudy will get those targets and will give you some potential for a decent stat line, but I don't see the upside there for him this week. And you also see them really utilizing Patrick in that passing game. We have Cortland Sutton, Melvin Gordon is getting involved in that passing game. This all hurts Jeudy, who's still working his way back from that ankle injury. So I know if you've got Jeudy, you drafted him, you were hoping for big things this year, and you want to get him in your lineup, and I totally get it. I have him though as a receiver who's outside my top 30 for this matchup.
All righty, Kyle, who is your super loser of the week?
My super loser of the week is going to be Antonio Gibson. So, had a bye last week. Maybe he got healthy. Maybe he didn't. If he actually has a stress fracture, it was weird. You didn't see the injury designation in week 8, yet Jarrett Patterson had more carries than he did. So he may be coming back into a potential split, or he might not. Either way, he's playing Tampa Bay. That's a brutal running back matchup. I'm staying 100 yards away from Antonio Gibson this week.
You're not even going into that stadium with Antonio Gibson.
You don't want any part of that. Give him another bye week, and
sounds good. All righty, let's give everyone another view there. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. Let's give everyone another view there of the board.
Real quick, could I throw in some quick advice here on Antonio Gibson? Do you mind?
Yes, I mind. I'm kidding. Give us some quick advice.
So Antonio Gibson has 2 very difficult matchups here back to back. They've got Tampa Bay and they're at Carolina, and I'm not expecting him to do great things. Kind of what Kyle just pointed out. So if there was a time to buy Antonio Gibson, it's going to be over the next 2 weeks. either going into this matchup or coming out of this matchup or the Carolina matchup. After that, he has Seattle, he has Vegas, he has Dallas, Philly, and then Dallas and Philly to finish up the season. Those are all, with the exception of Dallas, who's been kind of a neutral matchup against running backs, all the rest are very, very positive running back friendly matchups. So if you were going to make a move for him, that would be the time to do it and hope that he can deliver down the stretch.
Yeah, that's good advice. Alrighty, I'm going to give one last view here to the viewers on a zoom in there. Alrighty, guys, that concludes Week 10 Snoozers and Losers. Again, Tony from Fantasy Quick Hits. Get all his new videos. Kyle from Boom Bust Fantasy Football on pretty much every video on the network these days. And I'm just
but Tony's the one they're clamoring for. Though,
I know, I tell you. And I'm just here for eye candy and I'm here for the jokes and the eye candy. All right, Tony's also the eye candy. Dang it, I get nothing. All right.
Self-proclaimed eye candy.
I'm going to shave my head and see how that works out. Maybe.
It works.
On that note, guys, we're signing off for the week. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the support.